The text message hit me like a punch to the gut, the kind that steals your breath and leaves your heart hammering in your ears. I was sitting in my corner office, 35 floors above Silicon Valley, the Monterey Bay glittering in the distance through floor-to-ceiling windows. My phone buzzed on the glass desk, and I glanced at it, expecting a routine update from my assistant. Instead, it was my mother, Vivian, her words slicing through the hum of my world like a knife. "We've changed the locks and security codes. You're no longer welcome. We know what you did." I froze, my fingers hovering over the screen, the city's pulse fading into a dull roar. What I did? What the hell was she talking about? I hadn't been to the family estate in Monterey in weeks, buried in board meetings and product launches for my tech company Horizon Labs. For 3 years, I'd poured $8,000, 0 cents a month, $288,000, 0 cents total, into keeping that sprawling coastal mansion out of the bank's hands, staving off foreclosure while my parents, Vivian and Richard, and my sister, Chloe, treated me like an afterthought. And now this? Locks changed, codes reset, and some cryptic accusation that made my skin crawl. My hands shook as I typed a reply, each word deliberate, a spark of defiance igniting in my chest. Smart move. But you forgot something critical. I hit send and leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen, my mind racing. What had I missed? What game was my family playing now? The estate wasn't just a house. It was a legacy, a 5-acre monument to our family's history, with its ivy-draped stone walls, oceanfront cliffs, and memories of my grandparents' laughter echoing through its halls. I'd sacrificed everything to save it. Vacations, my dream of a San Francisco penthouse, even my beloved Porsche sold to cover last year's payments. And for what? To be locked out, like a thief, accused of something? Before I could spiral further, my phone buzzed again. Not my mother this time, but James, my fiancé, his text a lifeline. "Dinner tonight? Miss you." I exhaled, grounding myself in his steadiness, but the unease lingered. I needed to get out of here, clear my head. Grabbing my keys, I left the office, ignoring the concerned glance from my assistant, Maya. The elevator ride down felt endless, the mirrored walls reflecting my tense expression. Eleanor Harper, 35, tech CEO, Stanford grad, and apparently a family outcast. The drive home along the Pacific Coast Highway was supposed to calm me, the ocean's rhythm usually a balm for my stress. But tonight, the road felt treacherous, the cliffs to my left dropping sharply into the churning sea. My Tesla hummed, the dashboard glowing softly, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying Vivian's text, dissecting every word. "We know what you did." What did that even mean? I hadn't done anything but work myself to the bone, keeping their world afloat while they fawned over Chloe, my younger sister, the golden child who could do no wrong. I was halfway home when it happened. Headlights flared in my rearview mirror, too close, too fast. A black SUV roared up behind me, its grille menacing in the dusk. My pulse spiked. I tapped the accelerator, easing ahead, but the SUV matched my speed, inches from my bumper. "What the hell?" I muttered, gripping the wheel. This wasn't some impatient commuter. This felt deliberate. I glanced at the cliffs, the narrow road offering no escape. Before I could react, the SUV swerved, its side slamming into my car with a sickening crunch. Metal screamed, and my Tesla lurched toward the edge, tires skidding on gravel. The cliff loomed, a yawning void below. Instinct kicked in. I yanked the wheel, fighting to stay on the road, my heart pounding as the SUV veered away and sped off into the night. My car spun, tires screeching, before coming to a stop inches from the drop. I sat there, breathless, hands trembling, the ocean's roar mocking my near-eth. Sabotage. The word clawed at me. Someone had tried to run me off the road, and my gut screamed it wasn't random. Was this tied to Vivian's text, to the estate, to Chloe's latest scheme? I called James, my voice shaking as I recounted the attack. "Stay there," he said, his calm lawyer's tone masking his worry. "I'm coming to get you." While I waited, I dialed the police, filing a report, though the SUV's plates were a blur in my memory. The officer's skepticism didn't help, his questions implying I'd misjudged a reckless driver. But I knew better. This was personal. By the time James arrived, his dark hair tousled from speeding over, I was a mess, leaning against my dented car, the sea breeze cold against my skin. He pulled me into his arms, his warmth grounding me. "You're okay," he murmured, but his eyes scanned the road, wary. "This wasn't an accident, Eleanor. We need to figure out what's going on." Back at my apartment in Carmel, a sleek loft with views of the bay, I poured a glass of wine, my hands still unsteady. James sat across from me, his laptop open, already digging into the estate's financial records. "Tell me everything," he said, his voice gentle but firm. So I did, spilling the story of the past 3 years. How I'd taken on the mortgage to save the family home, how my parents and Chloe had dismissed my sacrifices, how Vivian's text had shattered any illusion of loyalty. Growing up in that Monterey estate was like living in a gilded cage. The mansion was a masterpiece. 10 bedrooms, a wraparound veranda, a private beach where I'd spent summers building sandcastles with my grandparents. But it came with a hierarchy as rigid as the cliffs it sat on. Vivian and Richard, my parents, had eyes only for Chloe, their fragile daughter, a charismatic influencer whose every whim was indulged. Chloe's birthdays were spectacles, catered galas, live bands, custom gowns flown in from Paris. Mine? A quiet dinner, a store-bought cake, and gifts like textbooks or socks. "Chloe needs more encouragement," Vivian would say when I dared question the disparity. "You're so capable, Eleanor. You don't need the spotlight." Capable. That word became my prison. By high school, I'd buried my hurt, channeling it into ambition. While Chloe partied, racking up followers and credit card debt, I earned a scholarship to Stanford, coding late into the night, dreaming of a life beyond the estate's shadow. Chloe, meanwhile, married Liam, a slick entrepreneur with a smile as sharp as his temper. Together, they burned through money, launching failed startups while my parents bailed them out, draining the family. When my grandparents passed 4 years ago, their will shocked us all. Instead of leaving the estate to my parents, they named the entire family as heirs. Me, Chloe, Vivian, Richard. I saw it as their way of balancing the scales, acknowledging the favoritism I'd endured. But the estate's upkeep was a beast, and my parents' financial mismanagement, coupled with Chloe's endless emergency, pushed it to the brink of foreclosure. 3 years ago, over a tense Sunday dinner, Vivian broke down, admitting they couldn't cover the $8,000 0 cents monthly mortgage. Richard's real estate ventures had tanked, and Chloe's latest flop, a vegan skincare line, had left them drowning in debt. "We'll lose everything," Vivian sobbed, her perfectly manicured hands trembling. I couldn't bear the thought of the estate, my grandparents' legacy, being auctioned off, so I stepped in, offering to handle the payments. "Just until you're back on your feet," I said, naive enough to believe they'd appreciate it. The sacrifices were immediate. I sold my Porsche, canceled trips to Europe, and took on late-night consulting gigs, all to keep the estate afloat. I gave up my dream of a penthouse in San Francisco, settling for my Carmel loft instead. Every Sunday, I'd drive to the estate for family dinners, sitting at the mahogany table while Chloe dominated the conversation, her latest vlog, her feud with a rival influencer, her plans for a yacht party, my achievements, launching Horizon Labs, securing a $50 million 0 cents venture capital deal. earned distracted nods, if that. "That's nice, dear," Vivian would murmur, her eyes fixed on Chloe. My best friend Natalie, a blunt cybersecurity expert, saw through it all. "They're using you, Elle," she'd say over coffee at our favorite Monterey cafe. "You're bankrolling their lifestyle, and they treat you like a doormat." James was gentler, but just as firm. "I hate seeing you pour everything into people who don't value you," he'd say, his hand warm on mine. Still, I clung to the idea that family meant sacrifice, that saving the estate was my duty, even if it went unacknowledged. But the signs were there, piling up like storm clouds. In recent months, my parents grew cagey, whispering behind closed doors, stopping when I entered. Chloe and Liam visited the estate more often, their laughter echoing from private meetings I wasn't invited to. I brushed it off, too busy with Horizon Labs' upcoming IPO to dwell. Until that text. Until the SUV. Until tonight, when the world I'd fought to hold together started to crack. James closed his laptop, his jaw tight. "We need to dig deeper. That text, the car, whoever's behind this isn't playing small." I nodded, my mind flashing to Chloe. She'd always been manipulative, but this felt darker, more calculated. And Liam? His temper was legendary, his finances a mess. Could they be desperate enough to target me? As I sipped my wine, a new notification pinged on my phone. An email from my office's security team flagged urgent. My stomach dropped as I opened it. Unauthorized access attempt on Horizon Labs servers. Data breach suspected. Immediate action required. I stared at the screen, the room spinning. First the text, then the car, now this. Someone was coming for me, and they weren't just after the estate. They were after everything I'd built. I set the glass down, my resolve hardening. "They think they can push me out," I told James, my voice steady despite the fear. "But they've underestimated me. Whatever they're planning, I'm ready to fight back." The next morning I woke to the sound of waves crashing outside my loft, a reminder of the Monterey Estate's cliffs, now barred to me. The dinted Tesla sat in my parking garage, a stark symbol of last night's attack. I called Natalie, filling her in on the text, the SUV, and the data breach. "This is war," she said, her voice sharp. "You need to protect yourself, your company, your life. Start with the estate. Stop the payments." The idea hit like a lightning bolt. Cancel the mortgage. Let the bank take the estate. It felt like betraying my grandparents' memory, but what was the alternative? Keep funding a family that had literally locked me out? I logged into my bank account, my finger hovering over the Cancel Payment button. The $8,000 0 cents monthly transfer had been my lifeline to the estate, my proof of loyalty, but loyalty went both ways, and mine had been spat on. I clicked cancel, my heart pounding as the confirmation popped up. Next, I drafted an email to the bank, stating I was not the property owner and would no longer cover the mortgage. As I hit send, a weight lifted, mingled with dread. This would change everything. My family, my legacy, my future. But I was done being their ATM, done playing the capable daughter who fixed their messes. The fallout came faster than I expected. By noon, my phone was blowing up. Chloe's voicemail was venomous. "Eleanor, you selfish bitch. The bank called about a missed payment. What are you doing?" Vivian's text was softer, but no less manipulative. "Sweetheart, there's been a misunderstanding. The locks were for security. Neighborhood break-ins, call me." Richard's call was blunt. "This is unacceptable, Eleanor. You have a responsibility to this family." I ignored them all, focusing on the data breach. At Horizon Labs, I met with my cybersecurity team, their faces grim. "Someone tried to access our R&D files," my CTO Raj reported. "They got in through a back door, but we contained it. No critical data lost. Yet, the timing was too perfect. Was this Chloe and Liam escalating their game, or something bigger tied to my company's rivals? As I left the office, another shock awaited. A process server handed me a lawsuit notice filed by Chloe, claiming I'd breached family trust by stopping the mortgage payments. The audacity was breathtaking. She was suing me for not funding her inheritance. The media had already caught wind, a headline flashing on my phone: "Family feud over Monterey estate." My company's stock dipped 5%, investors calling for answers. That night, James and I strategized over takeout. The lawsuit spread across my coffee table. "They're trying to break you," he said, his eyes fierce. "But you're stronger than this. We'll fight, legally, financially, whatever it takes." I nodded, but the weight of it all, the car, the breach, the lawsuit, was crushing. And then at 2 a.m. my security system blared. Someone had triggered the motion sensors outside my loft. I grabbed my phone, heart racing, as James checked the cameras. A figure in a hoodie was spray painting my front door, the words "traitor" glaring in red. This wasn't just betrayal, this was war, and I was ready to fight for my life. The red paint on my front door glistened under the moonlight, the word "traitor" dripping like blood. My loft's security cameras had caught the hooded figure in the act, but the grainy footage offered no clear face, just a shadow fleeing into the caramel night. My heart pounded as James and I stood there, the ocean's distant roar a cruel contrast to the chaos unfolding in my life. 24 hours ago, I'd been rammed off a cliffside road. Now, my company was under attack. My family had locked me out of the Monterey estate I'd spent $288,000, 0 cents to save. And someone, likely Chloe or her volatile husband Liam, had defaced my home. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a calculated assault, and I was done playing the victim. I called the police, my voice steady despite the adrenaline. The officer who arrived was more thorough than the one from the highway incident, dusting for prints and bagging the spray can left behind. "We'll run this through the system," he said, but his tone suggested slim odds of a match. James squeezed my hand, his lawyer's mind already working. "We need a private investigator," he whispered as the officer left. "Someone who can trace this back to its source." By dawn, I was exhausted but wired, sipping coffee as James coordinated with a PI he trusted, a former FBI agent named Carla Reyes. My phone buzzed relentlessly, missed calls from Vivian, Richard, Chloe, even a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. I ignored them, focusing on the data breach at Horizon Labs. My CTO, Raj, had texted an update. Backdoor access traced to an IP in Monterey. We're locking it down, but they got some R&D file. Monterey? My family's backyard. The coincidence was too stark to ignore. I drove to the office, the dented Tesla, a reminder of how close I'd come to dying. Silicon Valley's morning buzz felt surreal, the tech world oblivious to my personal war. Raj met me in the boardroom, his laptop open to a forensic report. "The hacker used sophisticated malware," he said, his voice low. "This wasn't a random script, Kitty. It's an inside job, or someone with serious resources." My mind flashed to Liam, whose failed startup had dabbled in cybersecurity. Had he turned his skills against me? Or was Chloe, with her influencer network, pulling strings I couldn't yet see? Before I could process, my assistant Maya burst in, her face pale. "Eleanor, there's a reporter outside, and Chloe's here. She's in the lobby, demanding to see you." My stomach dropped. Chloe? In my office after leaking my betrayal to the press? This was no coincidence. I glanced at Raj. "Hold off on the breach report. I'll handle this." The lobby was a glass-walled arena, Horizon Labs logo gleaming above. Chloe stood there, her designer heels clicking, her face a mask of righteous fury. Employees whispered, their glances darting between us. I squared my shoulders, channeling the CEO I'd fought to become. "What do you want, Chloe?" My voice was ice, cutting through the tension. "You know damn well," she snapped, her eyes glittering. "You canceled the mortgage payment. The bank's threatening foreclosure, and you're acting like it's nothing. You're destroying our family." Her voice rose, theatrical, drawing more eyes. She was performing, painting me as the villain for her audience of strangers. "I'm destroying the family?" I stepped closer, my voice low but sharp. "I paid $8,000, 0 cents a month for 3 years, $288,000, 0 cents, to keep that estate afloat, and you all locked me out, changed the codes, and accused me of what? Exactly? Spying? Threatening you?" I held up my phone, showing the text from Vivian. "New locks and codes. Chloe saw you spying. Stay away." Chloe's smirk faltered, but only for a second. "You're twisting this," she hissed. "You've always been jealous, Eleanor. You don't need the estate. You've got your fancy company, your perfect life. I deserve that house. Mom and Dad agree." Her words echoed our last dinner, when Vivian had declared Chloe belonged in the estate, dismissing my sacrifices. The memory stung, but I refused to let it show. "Get out," I said, my tone final, "and tell Vivian and Richard their lies won't work anymore." Chloe's eyes narrowed, but she turned on her heel, tossing a parting shot over her shoulder. "This isn't over, Eleanor. You'll regret this." As she stormed out, the reporter, a young woman from TechCrunch, jotted notes furiously. My company's stock was already tanking. This would only make it worse. Back in my office, I called Natalie, my best friend and cybersecurity guru. "Chloe just ambushed me," I said, pacing, "and the breach is tied to Monterey. I need you to dig into Liam's digital footprint. He's got the skills for this." Natalie's voice was fierce. "On it. But you need to cut them off completely. Canceling the payment was a start, but they're escalating. Protect yourself." Her words echoed as I stared at the lawsuit notice Chloe had filed, accusing me of breach of family trust. The claim was absurd. I wasn't on the deed, had no legal obligation, but the public damage was real. My board was rattled, investors pulling back. I called my attorney, Laura Kim, a shark in family law. "They've got nothing," she assured me over the phone. "Your texts with Vivian and Richard show the payments were temporary. But this lawsuit is a distraction. They're trying to bleed you dry, emotionally, financially." Laura's confidence steadied me, but the hits kept coming. That afternoon, my car's mechanic called about the Tesla. "Someone tampered with your brakes," he said, his voice grim. "The lines were cut just enough to fail on a sharp turn. You're lucky to be alive." My blood ran cold. The cliffside attack wasn't a one-off. Someone, likely Liam, given his temper and desperation, wanted me dead. I met James for dinner at a quiet bistro in Monterey, needing his calm to anchor me. But as we sat, my phone pinged with an anonymous email, the subject line chilling. "Stop now, or you won't see tomorrow." The message was brief. "You've taken enough. Back off, or we'll end you." James grabbed my phone, forwarding it to Carla, the PI. "This is from Liam's IP," he said, his jaw tight. "Carla's tracking it. We'll nail him." The threat hung over me like a storm cloud, but I refused to cower. I spent the next day fortifying Horizon Labs' defenses, working with Raj to secure our servers. Natalie called with a breakthrough. Liam's been active on dark web forums, selling access to corporate networks. I can't prove he hit Horizon Labs yet, but he's got the tools. Her words confirmed my fears. Liam was a ticking bomb, and Chloe was likely his accomplice. Then came the fire. I was home alone, James at a late deposition, when the smoke alarm blared. Flames licked the walls of my loft, spreading from the kitchen. I grabbed my laptop and phone, coughing as I stumbled to the fire escape. The night air hit me like a slap as I watched firefighters battle the blaze. Arson, they later confirmed, tracing the source to a timed device. My family's fingerprints were all over this. Chloe's vindictiveness, Liam's ruthlessness. I moved into a hotel, my loft uninhabitable, my nerves frayed. Insomnia took hold, my appetite gone, 10 pounds melting off in weeks. James cooked for me, held me through panic attacks, his faith in me unwavering. "You're not alone in this," he said, his eyes fierce. "We'll expose them." But the smear campaign escalated, relatives texting me accusations of abandoning the family, fueled by Chloe's lies about my mental instability. Only Aunt Margaret, my father's sister, reached out with doubt. "Something's off, Eleanor," she texted. "Can we talk?" I met Margaret at a cafe in Pacific Grove, her kind eyes a rare comfort. Over coffee, she revealed Chloe's manipulation. "She's been telling Vivian and Richard you're plotting to seize the estate, that you're resentful of her rightful claim. She's got them convinced you're the enemy." My jaw dropped. Chloe and Liam, bankrupt and desperate, saw the estate as their lifeline, and I was the obstacle. Margaret's words lit a fire in me. I wasn't just fighting for myself, but for the truth. The bank's second foreclosure notice arrived, forwarded by Vivian with a desperate plea. "Please fix this, Eleanor." No apology, no acknowledgement of their betrayal. I ignored it, but Chloe's next move was bolder. She crashed a Horizon Labs board meeting, bursting into the conference room mid-presentation, her voice shrill. "Eleanor's defrauding this company. She's using our family's money to fund her empire." The board froze, investors murmuring. I stood, my voice calm but lethal. "You're trespassing, Chloe. And your lies won't stick. Security, escort her out." The incident made headlines, my stock plummeting further. But Laura Kim was ready, filing a countersuit for defamation and harassment. "We've got bank statements, texts, and your payment history," she said. "Chloe's case is crumbling." My financial advisor, Mark, added hope. Without the mortgage burden, I could buy a home in 4 months, my future finally mine. Then came the family's desperation. Carla, the PI, caught Vivian and Richard attempting to hack my bank account, triggering a fraud alert. "They're broke," Carla reported. "Chloe and Liam's credit is shot. They're betting on guilting you back." But I was done. Margaret called, urging me to attend a family meeting at her house. "It's time to end this," she said. I agreed, but on my terms, bringing James and a folder of evidence texts, bank records, the death threat. The meeting was a powder keg. Margaret's living room held Vivian, red-eyed, Richard haggard, Chloe seething, and Liam, his smirk barely hiding his panic. Relatives watched, uneasy. I laid out the truth. The lockout text, my $288,000 0 cents contribution, Chloe's lies about my spying. Chloe exploded. "You're obsessed with playing the victim. I earned that estate." I held up the death threat email, traced to Liam. "Earned it through this?" I asked, my voice steady. Liam paled, stammering denials. Vivian sobbed. Richard shouted. But their lawyer, a nervous friend of my father's, admitted I owed nothing legally. "You locked me out of a home I paid for," I said, standing. "You called my sacrifices a gift and gave Chloe everything. I'm done being your ATM." Chloe lunged, screaming, but James stepped between us, his presence a shield. I walked out, the room silent, my heart pounding with liberation. The estate was listed for a short sale. Chloe's public meltdown going viral, her influencer career in tatters. I bought a cliffside home with James, our sanctuary free from family ties. Vivian's email arrived months later, a genuine apology admitting lifelong favoritism. I met her, setting firm boundaries, a tentative step toward healing. But Chloe's final act, vandalizing our new home with Yule pay in paint, led to her arrest, closing the saga. Standing in our home, James's arms around me, I felt free. The hardest fight had given me my life back, proving my worth wasn't tied to their approval. I'd broken the cycle, and that was victory enough.